I'm Megan.
I'm CJ.
And I'm Erica.
And this is the Her Podcast.
Okay, we're so excited to be sitting down with our friend Aimee Schneider today. Aimee is a serial entrepreneur who owns both a bridal boutique and a clothing boutique in Saskatoon. If you guys follow me, then you'll know what I'm talking about, the dress code. It's like my favorite spot to shop. Aimee works one-on-one with brides, styles customers in both stores, and finds time to support her community in so many ways. We're chatting all things fashion, business ownership, self-care, and the wedding industry. We also dive into the journey of what it was like purchasing not one, but two established businesses in YXC and how she successfully rebranded them to reflect her and what she loves, and again, make them successful. She also shares the importance of listening to others and their needs when making sales, especially in the bridal industry. Turn it up, you guys. It's so good.
Do you use TikTok for business?
You know what? I downloaded it and deleted it.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
I just, and you guys know kind of my idea behind this, but like I've always sort of wrapped my mental state around or not mental state, but my business around professionalism. And so even like I just actually switched appointment reminders in my bridal business over to text message, because to me, getting a formal email that says, hey, this is who we are, this is where to find us, this is what to bring and to do in an email is much more professional than like, hey, see you in 10
right
in a text. And so I really, really struggle with a lot of that kind of stuff. And it's like, I've grown to appreciate Instagram and like we were kind of talking the pros and cons of social media in a sense where it gives you a platform. It's basically free as a platform to use to like move your business forward. And for me, TikTok is just one of those things that feels, and again, this is a completely outsider's look on it because I don't use it at all, childish. It feels very childish. And so it
was created for young people.
Yeah.
Like it actually was created for a younger demographic, and then all of us adults got on it and took it away.
Yeah.
And I think too, like I'm judging it from maybe like 2 years ago when it was all, we were all locked up in our houses and people were using it as the TikTok dance talent challenges and all of that kind of stuff. And so I maybe haven't explored it in a sense where I could use it in a business perspective, but let's be real, you two just got me on Reels. Yeah. So we're slow growing here. Yeah. Slow growing.
Up and up.
I think that's a good point though, because I think emails for me are, I'm trying to learn to communicate with people that if you really want to get a hold of me, please don't email me, because I guarantee it'll sit in my inbox for probably at least a week. Like if you want to get a hold of me, call me or text me. So I appreciate text reminders because I know I'm going to look at it. Yeah. But an email, I will say in my head, oh, I need to get back to that. And then I won't.
Emails are easier to miss too.
Yes, because there's so much stuff coming in.
Yes.
So I can appreciate the professionalism aspect behind it. And then I also appreciate the adapting to be like, if they're out and about and they've forgotten they have an appointment, probably a text is going to make them be like, oh my gosh, I have an appointment. I completely forgot it's tomorrow or whatever, right?
Well, this is like an interesting landscape, right? Because I'm like, we all own businesses and to have to pivot with new technologies, new ways of doing things, like culture shifts, like all of that kind of stuff, right? And so I'm going to fully circle back, but I'm like, well, Aimee, you purchased two businesses, right? And took those on as your own, rebranded, put life into them. And I'm like, what did that journey look like? Because, I would assume starting a business like from, let's call it scratch, right? And from the get-go and building it up into something, it looks different than purchasing an existing business and then making it your own and going from there. So what did that look like for you?
Well, I had two wildly different experiences with my business. Yeah. So I purchased Jenny's Bridal Boutique. And at the time, like she was an older business owner who had done great things for a very long time. And everything was on paper.
Paper receipts.
Right. Paper receipts. She did not actually have a computer within the business.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so trying to sort of like even just that part of it was very different than my purchase of Tonic. And so when I sort of took over Unveiled the bridal boutique, it was different in a sense where it was like there's layaway. And so when you purchase a bridal dress, it takes 6 to 8 months for it to arrive. And so there were brides that were from the previous business owner that were now going to be mine. And so I had to very gently take that business over. And so
That's a great way of phrasing it.
Yeah.
you know, you don't want to just like slap a new name on it because you're going to have brides banging down your door being like, where's my dress? What happened?
Absolutely.
There was
Create fear.
Yeah, there was a little bit of muddy water in the bridal industry in Saskatoon at the time too. There had been a couple of stores go under and run away with deposits.
I remember that.
Brides' money. And so I think I had to like mentally go very slow. And so rebranding and creating my own thing was a very slow process because I didn't want to scare anyone. And I wanted the girls to know that they were still going to be well taken care of and that their dresses were still coming, and nothing was really going to change on that end of things. And so it was a very slow process. I was at a really weird time of life too, sort of doing all of this. And so I maybe mentally bit off a little bit more than I could chew.
Oh, we're familiar with that.
Yes.
We're all in that club.
Yeah. And I actually had a conversation with a bride who turned now friend who had come in at that time and had an experience with me. And she was like, it was not a good one. And I was like, my capacity for it at that time and just everything that was going on behind the scenes it wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it was a slow process. So I actually was the general manager of the business at the time. And so I had partners that had purchased the business. And so on the financial end of things, so they were silent partners and I was running the front. And so it was my face, and my face wasn't in a great place. And I was in a really difficult position as well because I was going through a divorce, and the gentlemen that I had owned the business with were very good friends with my ex-husband, and they were also very good friends of mine. And so they were put in this like middle position where they were trying to support the growth of the business whilst still managing this like friendship on the outside. So it was a lot.
Oh, that's layers, friend.
What a dynamic.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a lot. And I look back on it now and I'm thankful that we survived it. I'm thankful that I was able to kind of like grow through that and kind of get to where I am now. And so I ended up purchasing the business 3 years into that relationship. It just didn't resonate with them. It didn't resonate with their business model and everything that was going on. And it wasn't a flourishing partnership. And I needed to have a little bit more control. And so when I purchased it got to become my own. And so Unveiled was my vision, like the name, the branding, like, you know, we all sort of like came to that together, but it was definitely what I wanted. But when it became my own and I had a little bit more control over it, that's when I felt like I could really level it up and make it my own thing. And then COVID and then the pandemic. And I think everybody looked at the pandemic as like something super scary. And I celebrated when they were like, you have to close your doors. And I was like,
You needed a break.
A break.
It wasn't that I needed a break per se. It was that I needed to stop the momentum in the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Because it was like bridal in Saskatchewan sort of had this like look, and there was this mold, the way that everybody was doing it. And so brides would go to this store and they would expect this, and then they would go to this store and they would expect the same thing. And so they were coming in expecting the same experience at every boutique, and I didn't want to be the same.
Yeah.
I wanted to be my own. I wanted to level up the experience. I wanted to create something totally different, and I couldn't, because it was like every time I turned around, the door was opening and there was another bride there.
Yeah.
And I needed that like time. And you can't, again.
Which is, I'm just going to interject here because I feel like CJ and I are going through this in our own business. And it's almost like had you built your own business from the beginning, you would have had that time period to build it what you want. But when you step into something, and the term
You're
like
already on
you're
the
hit the
hamster
ground
wheel.
running,
Yeah.
like you're already on it, and you're like, there's actually no time to pause because I'm flooded with business. And why would I pause being flooded with business?
Exactly.
It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, but then you're like on that hamster wheel being like, this is not how I want to do it, but I can't get off. I can't get off. I can't get off.
Exactly. And so I was dealing with, again, kind of the same thing as when we took over that transition, where I didn't want to close or to stop business and brides be worried about their dresses.
Yeah.
And so it's a very stressful environment for my customer. And so you try and like navigate it with them in mind. And so when they were like, you have to close for the pandemic, and sort of, I was like, okay, we're going to do everything that we possibly can do to grow and define how we reopen. And so it went on way too long.
Yeah, we can all acknowledge that.
Way too long. But I think it was a beautiful moment for me to sit back and be like, how do I want to do this? How is Unveiled going to look for me when we reopen? And so it was a really beautiful moment in business.
I love being able to reflect on that though, because I'm not trying to downplay what different people's experiences going through COVID are. And COVID obviously brought like a lot of challenges, but to hear that you were able to use that time to really benefit you and your business is amazing.
Well, and I think I was looking at it from a perspective where obviously like you want money coming in the door, and I was like trying to do everything possible, and it sort of organically actually happened for me because I was like, okay, I'm a physically touch business, like just like a hairstylist or a makeup artist, like I have my hands on other bodies, and you're taking that away from me to, you know, sort of slow the spread of this sickness. So I had to shift in how I was going to do business throughout that. And what came out of it was exactly what I'm doing now. And it was sort of beautiful. So I interviewed women over email and phone calls and was like, what are you looking for? And I created sort of this questionnaire that sort of developed as we went through it. And then I would pack up 5 dresses, 5 to 7. I would pack up 5 dresses and be like, okay, this is what she expressed to me through wording that she wanted. And I would show up on her doorstep, packed up these dresses on a rack. Yeah. I drove all over this province.
Oh, that's so special.
Like to every corner of this province. And I would sit in their driveway while they tried the dresses on in their house, and I would FaceTime them, and I would walk them through fit and finish and kind of like, you know, you need to shorten the strap here so you can get a better look. This is the cost of this. This is how we're going to order it. I'd walk them through. I did 52 appointments that way through the pandemic, and I sold 49 dresses.
Oh my God.
That's amazing. That's a really great conversion rate.
And so when we're thinking about the fact that, okay, this is how this is working, I was like, this is actually working. Like that kind of a close rate where you can try it on in your kitchen and say yes. Like you've basically kind of removed the experience from this process.
But you gave them such a personal experience still.
What was your knowledge?
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, this is how we're going to do it when we reopen. We're going to ask these questions, and us as consultants, I call stylists in the store. I don't really like the word of like the verbiage of consultant. I've always called my staff stylists. We're going to ask the questions, and we're going to use our knowledge to benefit you. And so I just found that pre-pandemic, there was girls coming in and they're like, I've tried on 75 dresses and nothing's working.
Like how overwhelming you've taken that piece of overwhelm out of it. Cause it can be such an exciting, fun time, but it can also be like, oh my God, I don't know. Like I have this picture in my head, but I don't know how that will look. And then maybe they put that style on and it doesn't suit them. And then there's frustration. And then there's like, I think that's so amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe you're getting to this point, but I don't want to say like let or allow, but brides aren't allowed to shop the rack. Like
no.
When they come into your store.
Right.
So I remember when I was picking out my dress, I was like going through the rack and like being like, oh, well, this one's pretty or this one's pretty, right? And you just kind of like grab.
Yeah.
And that's not actually how you've done things in your store.
No. So I switched it up when we moved into our new space. So the old space was old. It needed updating. And so when you walked into the store, and I have a shopping problem.
You're in good company.
Yeah.
And so even when I shop for the store, I'm like, ooh, you're pretty. Ooh, you're pretty. Ooh, you're pretty.
Yes.
Like I'm on this like forum right now, and girls are like, how do you go into buying markets? How do you set your budgets? I'm like, you set budgets?
Well, we just talked about this the other day. I was in the store and a beautiful dress caught my eye, and you were like, yeah, it was like really expensive. And then your staff member was like, yeah, but how many did you sell?
Yeah.
Right? Because you took a risk.
And it's just, I buy what's pretty.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you sort of enjoy those things, then you're going to share that joy. And so I think it's a little bit easier that way. And so when you walked into the old space, you had to walk through hundreds of dresses to get to your seats.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I felt was overwhelming. I mean, you're just like, oh my gosh, where do I even start? And then we'd be like, okay, go off and pick your dresses.
It's also like in those racks, they all blend together.
Absolutely. They turn into just kind of like white mashed potatoes. It's a lot.
Sparkles.
Well, and you're like, I don't want to miss the dress.
Exactly.
So you're going through being like, I have to look at every single one because I don't want to miss the dress. And now you're 20 dresses in and you're like, what do I even want anymore?
Well, and when we show up, it's like once or twice a couple times in our life that we're ever shopping for dresses.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like we have no knowledge of like what that world is actually like. And you get to deal with that on a daily basis and over and over.
Yeah. And bridal's so different. It's not like when you walk into a clothing store where it's like this blazer comes in 3 colors and there's every size on the rack for you to try. And so that was one of the things that I felt like we were dealing with constantly when we were allowing girls to pick dresses off the rack is they would grab a dress that was, for example, $4,000. They would have a $1,500 budget. And then now it's like you're trying to like sneak that dress back onto the rack to pull one that's similar within their budget.
Right.
So it was like you're trying to balance all of these things, but you're also trying to balance all of the women or people that you've brought with you too. And so I find it's very hard. It's an exciting experience.
Yeah.
And so everybody's energy is like, oh my gosh, we're going to shop. We're going to pull dresses and I want to see you in this and I want to see you in that.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, the bride's like, I want clean and simple. And I've tried on 100 ball gowns.
Yeah.
Sparkly ball gowns. And so she feels like she can't make an informed decision on her dress because she's tried on what everyone else is excited about and what everyone else wants to see her in. And so I found that just sort of removing that from the experience altogether, asking the girl about her. Who are you? Who do you want to show up on your day as? And what does your day look like so that I can guide you through the right fits and finishes so you're going to be comfortable. And so they do show us some images. They kind of like, they'll walk me through their day and what that looks like. And then I can kind of pull a few dresses. And I find that we can get them a better selection of dresses way faster. Mm-hmm. And so you get to sort of where she wants to be so much quicker in the process. So then she is able to sort of try on a lot of her favorites to sort of make that informed decision. And so it's like, now I've tried on 5 or 6 dresses that I really like. Which one do I love? Mm-hmm. And so I just find it's so much easier that way. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for way more people than the old method.
Do you find that, because we had just kind of mentioned the conversion of like you did 52 appointments, you sold 40, do you find that the conversion of purchasing is higher that way?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Substantially.
You have such an intentional system in place.
Yeah.
That's so special and still allows that really special, I would say more special experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? And I mean, again, not that I actually got my dress from Aimee way back when, and I've been in some wedding reels for Aimee's boutique. And what I think is interesting is even not being a bride, but even Aimee knowing me, and I would equate that to the questionnaire you would send someone. Even you pull dresses that I'm always like, this one, this one, this one, even though it's to advertise them. And so we could put anything on me and it'd be fine. But you really are still like, I still want it to look right. And I'm still going to like look at who I'm dressing and make sure that it works for them. Yeah. And so I think that's a talent you have, right?
Well, I'm like, the depth of your knowledge is amazing, right? And like, I'm curious how you cultivated that, right? Like, what did that look like? Because for our listeners, like, did you go to school? Did you take courses? Did you just like love fashion and immerse yourself in it? And, what was that looking like for you?
Well, so no schooling.
Yes.
None at all. So my bridal journey is kind of an interesting one. So I worked at a bar when I was in university, and I was not studying anything to do with fashion. Or
at all, because you were working at a bar.
I was paying my way through school, guys. Yeah. So I had met one of my very best friends kind of working in this industry, and her sister had opened a bridal boutique in the city. And Saturdays are very busy in bridal. And so you can go all week without seeing a soul, and then 75 people will walk through your door on a Saturday. And so staffing that is very difficult.
For sure.
And so her sister had asked, like, hey, do you want to work Saturdays? Like, it's a hard position to fill because I need a human for this one day of the week.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd give it a go. 100% I'd give it a go.
Yeah.
And my first day there, I was like, oh my God, I love this. It was like you help that first girl and she puts on this dress and she gets this overwhelming emotion from a garment of clothing. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Magic. Just like the feeling and being a part of that moment and just, I mean, you literally have life-size Barbies. I say this all the time. My job is dressing beautiful women all day long. Like it does not get better than that. And so I went to the bar that night and I was having a conversation with the owner of the bar and he was like, what do you want to do? Like, he's like, you're not in school for the right thing. Like you can sell. What are you going to do with your life? And I was like, one day I'm going to own a bridal boutique. And he was like, seriously? I'm like, yeah, one day I'm going to own a bridal store. And I was like, it's just going to be like a retirement dream. I'll do something meaningful. Before that, and I'll save up money and I'll buy a bridal boutique one day. And he was like, okay, you're weird, whatever. He eventually did get me into real estate. And so I started sort of my selling career, like left university and started selling real estate.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
No, I didn't either.
His house was my first listing.
Oh, really?
Oh,
he's like, let's
nice.
give you a test here.
Yeah. Oh, no, God. And I was like, the pressure. But, and I had amazing luck in real estate. Like I got into it at a great time. I really, really enjoyed it and got out of it for other reasons anyways. So he was the one who came to me and was like, we bought this building, but she won't release the building without buying the business and it's a bridal store and we have no idea what we're doing. Do you want to do this with us? And I was like, oh, yeah.
My dream on a silver platter.
Yes.
What was the turn? Like the day that you went into the other store on a Saturday to work, and then how much longer
10
later?
10 years.
Okay, wow.
That's what people need to know.
Yes,
Because that is what people need to know. Because we think we see someone's success and we're like, why aren't I there? And then you have to step back and be like, they have years of wondering where they were going, what they were doing to get to that point. And we too often compare ourselves to someone. I mean, that's such a cheesy thing to say, but when people are like, we compare our first chapter to the end of their book. Yeah. And we're like, you can't compare them.
No, you can't. And I don't think you should put timelines on anything ever. And I don't think there's ever a bad time to start over. I don't think there's ever a bad time to shift.
Yes.
Like if it's not resonating with you, I mean, I wouldn't be good at my job if I didn't love what I was doing. And so if I need to shift that, if I need to change, if bridal's no longer my thing, it's no longer my thing.
But I think this is something that our generation is in, and our parents, we're one generation away from the people who got a job as an accountant and hated their lives and stayed as an accountant. And
that's my dad.
Yeah, right. And not that
an accountant, but
I was gonna be like, hello.
And like even this idea about like you just stay in it even if you don't like it. And there's something to be said about hard work and sticking through something through tough times. But we're now in the generation of openly being like, this is not for me anymore. And I'm actually completely capable of going back to school if I want.
Well,
or
life
going
is
and doing
too
something
short.
new. Yeah.
yeah, I refuse to get my soul sucked out of me every single day doing something that I don't enjoy because we realize that that's important.
We pivot, we grow, we change.
So
Like it's not linear.
I love that you said that.
100%. And so, yeah, that's where the bridal journey started. And then my parents are my accountants.
Love it. Yeah, there it
They
is.
come in clutch at times.
Yeah.
Thank you to the
So-
generation above.
Wholeheartedly, like I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to have, like, first off, my mom loves fashion. And so I definitely get like a lot of that from my mom, but to have their support, their backing behind me and to sort of have that free advice has been lovely. They also own businesses growing up. They definitely lied to me about business owning and made it look glorious. And they'd come home and put their feet up every day and be like, this is wonderful. And I come home at the end of the day and I'm like, still have 75 emails to reply to.
They just waited until you were asleep to then be like, okay, let's dig back in.
So, I remember my stepdad saying to me one day, and he's like, the financial portion of this business is really tough to look at because bridal's so different than anything else. I mean, they had done books for other sort of retail sales industries before, but it's very cyclical. And so girls buy at one time of the year and then the dresses come in at another time. And so it's this layaway process. And so the bank account does this like very wavy thing. And it's quite scary to somebody who doesn't understand that it'll come back.
Right.
He's just looking at it going, it's empty. The bank account is empty. What's going on? He's like, you need a business within a business. Like, you need something else. And at this point, I was like, I am exhausted.
Yeah.
You are nuts. You are absolutely crazy. I do not need a business within a business. I'm not taking on anything else. And so I got off this phone call and I was like, I'm going for coffee. And so I'm walking from our old location down to Starbucks, and in between the two is Tonic.
Yes.
And Roxanne comes bolting out the door. She's like, buy my store. And I was like,
my goodness.
Such a Roxanne thing.
What? I was like, what? And she had this deal. She was ready to get out of the business. She had done such a beautiful job with Tonic for 23 years and sort of like watching it grow and building this beautiful brand. And I was like, you are crazy. And then I went and got my coffee, and I'm walking back and I'm like, didn't my dad just say to do this?
She's like, I'm crazy too.
And she walked in and was like, where do I sign?
And that's exactly how it happened.
Oh my gosh, so much kismet in your
Right?
story.
Yeah. And so just like serendipity, and I'm a firm believer of, if you have a dream, say it out loud, because that's what I did with the bridal boutique. Like, I mean, it came full circle. It took a long time to get there, but I said I wanted to do it, and I'm doing it.
Furnishing your home or space can be a big investment, but what if I told you guys it doesn't have to be? If you're looking to furnish or refresh your space, but you aren't ready to invest a lot of money up front, then you need to hear about Pivot. We just upgraded our podcast studio with Pivot, and we're loving the new furniture. If you guys haven't gone and checked out our new setup yet with our pink chairs, you're going to want to do that. Pivot is a Canadian company helping people by making home furnishings more convenient, accessible, and less wasteful. They offer a variety of beautiful furniture options in multiple colors and finishes, designed with quality materials that last. So it's affordable for everyone and easy on the environment. Plus, it's stain resistant, making it kid and pet friendly too. You need to check out the Pivot subscription option, perfect for anyone who likes flexibility, convenience, and low prices. Get low monthly pricing and the flexibility to keep your space fresh as your life and style change. Choose furniture, then sit back and relax while Pivot handles the delivery and the assembly for free. Refresh your space whenever you like with the furniture swaps, and payments decrease by 20% each year. So the longer you subscribe, the lower your payments get. Pivot offers furniture that can adapt to life's changes with flexibility, affordability, and sustainability at the forefront. Find them on Instagram at Pivot Subscriptions. That's PIVOT Subscriptions. And view all of the premium furniture options at pivotfurniture.com. You'll find the link in the show notes.
And so then I bought Tonic. And so that was a different experience than taking over of the other business, because Tonic had a beautiful name. It was a beautiful brand. It was really well known. She had obviously done some advertising that she was closing, and so it took us a little spin.
That was my question, because I know that there was some confusion.
Yes.
Because it was like Tonic's closing, and like you said, it was a very well-known store here for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And people were like, no, but then went and shopped all the sales, right? Like myself included. And we're like, I can't believe you're closing. And then like a couple weeks later, it's like, no, wait, it's not closing. What's happening? What's going on?
Yeah.
So how did you navigate that?
I didn't.
Okay.
I was lost. I was so lost in Steps Erica.
That's so kind.
She's like, I got
and
you.
Yeah.
Not like you're amazing on your own, but I loved you. And I was like, you've got a brand that needs people to know about it right now.
And I remember the conversation. I remember being in the basement of the old store, which was awkward all in itself, because her lease was ending on the Tonic space. And so that wasn't something I could take over.
Right.
I also financially couldn't see that being the best route for me, and trying to like balance two physical locations and running myself back and forth. And so I had this 3-story space, and I was like, well, we'll just pop you in the basement, which was awkward, because in the bridal store, you can't have coffee, you can't have your shoes on. And so it was like these girls are downtown shopping, and they'd show up and I'd be like, take your shoes off, leave your coffees at the door, and go on down and shop for denim shorts. Like, it just didn't work. And I remember standing in the space with Erica, and she was just like, we need to do something about this. Like, people need to know that this is here. And so she started doing takeovers on social media for me, and it just sort of like spiraled from there. And so when I had to let go of full control of the social media, because I have zero knowledge, and I also don't love doing that portion of it. And so when Carousel kind of started, and I mean, the business is tenfold different than it was when they kind of took all of that over for me. So I'm super thankful for you guys. And then it was another conversation when we were moving into the new space, as I sat down with them and they were like, how do you want to like announce this like new space? And I was like, tonic doesn't resonate with me. Like, I actually don't know what the word means when it comes to the boutique. And I was just like, I get that it was a long-standing brand in the city and I wanted to kind of keep that. And that's part of what you're buying when you're buying a business that has such a reputation. But I need my own thing.
Yes.
And so with some back and forth with the girls, we came up with the concept of creating the dress code by Unveiled, and so that they would fit together and that it would make sense to have them together. And so that's where we're at.
Well, and I think like we talk about this so often with like clients and people, like if you don't resonate with your business, like you're not committed to it.
Yeah.
Or you are committed to it, but like you don't feel like it's yours and you don't own it, and it ripples out in different ways, right? So to like have that name change for you, and now like that location change, and you've been able to like put
the
your
branding and just like
you need that emotional connection.
Well, and Roxanne's such an amazing woman. And when I had taken over the business, she was like, you know, like the client is very like bohemian and these are the brands that go really well. And she had made some recommendations of maybe some other brands that I could kind of go forward with. And she connected me with all of the right representatives and designers. And I was like, great. And I just sort of like, again, kept her momentum going.
Right.
And it wasn't working. It wasn't working. And as soon as I was like, I don't like that brand, bye. I'm going to bring my own.
Did you just feel the shift?
I did. And now I love going to shop for the store, and I'm bringing in pieces that are more me. And it's easier to sell when you like it.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I would say that the pieces and the buying that you do now for shop the dress code, because that's your Instagram.
A lot of people do, actually.
Right?
Yeah.
For dress code really fits in. Like, it's kind of when you walk into the space, if you haven't been there yet, what are you doing? Get down there. But you walk in and it's the dress code clothing.
Yeah.
And then it goes into grad, and then around the corner you would go into the bridal. But it's kind of like,
well, it's even separated.
Yeah.
Like technically the Unveiled has its own door now.
It does.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is a separation, which is nice.
Yeah. So the brides visit one space.
Okay.
Which is completely private. As private as it can be. We have a historical warehouse building. And so there are some like limitations on what we can do in like changing the structure. And so we have a massive space that I have separated with these pretty little French curtains. So that you can't really see through, but the brides have a private space. And then we have the dress co on the other side. And then within the dress co, we have our formal wear portion of Unveiled. And so the difference between the two businesses is bridal, and anything that is done through bridal is a custom order. And so when you try on a piece, you can try on like this navy blue dress and you can order it in red and in your size. The difference is dress co is ready to wear. And so we have dresses for all occasions. So you could walk in and buy a dress to go to work tomorrow. You can buy a dress to go to a wedding on Saturday, or you can order a bridesmaid's dress, a flower girl dress, a christening dress, a mother of the bride dress. So obviously like dress focused, formal wear focused, but we have a little bit of everything. And I feel like it's a place to sort of get dresses, which we've lost in the last few years. There's not a lot of places. Like, I mean, when we were growing up, there was Brian's. Do you guys say Brian's or Brand?
Brian?
Rest in peace, Mariposa.
Oh, yeah. Were we not talking about Mariposa the other day?
And Brian's. And what was the other one?
Brian's.
Well, is Le Chateau
Did
up
you have
again,
that?
though?
It did. So Le Chateau is actually now, from my understanding, within Susie Shear. So it's the same brand.
Does that still exist?
Yes.
My sister worked for Susie Shear in Moose Jaw.
So it's kind of the same concept ultimately as like what I'm doing, where Susie Shear is like your everyday ready to wear clothing, and then Le Chateau is like this little corner inside Susie Shear of formal wear.
Wild.
Interesting.
Right?
And like the retail obsessed brain in me is like, how fascinating that Le Chateau 15 years ago owned everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And now it's like a corner inside Susie Shear.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. Literally.
Which I love the independent small businesses thriving, but
Yeah.
it's just a wild
I know.
Yeah.
ride.
No, it is a spot to get. I mean, I can attest to it, right? Like whenever I'm at an event, I guarantee I'm wearing dress code at this point. I just said like, that's just what needs to be in my bio now is I'm wearing dress code with everything. Cause you have so many great pieces. And I feel like you are bringing in unique styles that I don't see other places. And as someone who loves fashion and loves to stand out in my fashion, it's a great spot for me. Right. And even people who are like, I don't want to stand out. I'm like, she loves neutral colors, so don't worry, you're covered there too. She's got you no matter what, which is amazing. Do you feel like was there any point that you were like, because I don't want to be like I stepped in, but you and I started having conversations. Was there any point where you were like, maybe this isn't working with having Tonic and I need to offload this business? Like, were those, nope, you were just always like, this is going to happen?
Yeah.
Figure out.
I was also raised in a family where we don't quit. I think for me, I was just looking at it like a project and like this route didn't work. What's the next one? And I think I was kind of always in that. And I guess I kind of made excuses for Tonic a little bit in the beginning where I was like, she did such a good job of advertising that it was closing that nobody knows we're open. And I was struggling with how to present that and how to reopen this brand. And so I felt like it was a work in progress at all times. And we were doing like enough to stay alive. And so I was like, this is a thing, it's working. And the bridal was doing so well at the time that I was like, you're just like my little side project.
Is that what you mean by making excuses?
Yeah, where I was just kind of like, I was giving it the freedom to sort of not thrive.
Yeah. Kind of like back burner.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I was like, it's working enough to be okay. And it's not taking a lot of my time. It's not taking a lot of my energy. This is fine.
Right.
And so I was just letting it be. And then when Erica kind of came to me and said, this is not good enough. Like, you deserve more.
In her lovely way.
Well, and it was a very kind of approach to it. And she was like, let me help you. What can I do? Can I do these takeovers? And then it was just this like, it's been a really slow growth, but it's been a very consistent growth. And it's been really beautiful to sort of watch. And again, it's one of those things where it hasn't taken a lot of my time away from the bridal. And it's allowed me to really like focus on that. And it's done exactly what I wanted it to do in the sense that we kind of combined these two ideas and we've become a dress hub. And so even though my focus personally seems to be more heavily on the bridal, I have a really fantastic team in place that lets Dress Co grow. And we go back and forth where it's like I had Ashley Piper did a giveaway on her page for the 12 Days of Christmas. And we did one of our first shopping parties, which we're hoping to kind of like create. Fun. And one of the girls in that shopping party had such a fantastic experience. She's like, I'm engaged. I'm booking an appointment with you.
Yeah.
And so she's coming back. And then we also offer a ton of little white dresses for our brides. And I'm like, when you purchase a dress for us, you're going to get a discount and you can go over to the Dress Co and you can get your engagement photo dress and you can get your bachelorette party dress. And so it has this like nice cyclical feel.
Well, and like from a business perspective, I'm like, that's a great sales funnel. I'm like nurturing your clients, right? On their journey and process through you, that it's not a one stop and done. Like there's other ways they can continue to interact with you for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Right? Because they may not wear a wedding dress again, but guess what? They're going to go to a wedding. They're going to have an event, right? They're going to go somewhere else.
Or they're going to have a friend get engaged.
Yes.
And they're going to be like, you have to, which is what I do, right? I'm like, you need to go here. You need to check this out. This is a unique experience. Like no one else in the city is doing this. Like I promise you, it's great. I'm curious because you mentioned before navigating like all the people who come in, because I can imagine families are wild. I know we as women have lots of opinions. So I'm curious on how you navigate that as the business owner. And I've had experiences with you shopping with brides before. My sister-in-law and my sister actually both got their dresses from you as well. And so I've watched you in action, but I'm interested on how you handle, I'm going to be blunt, when people are overstepping and you're like, y'all need to back off right now.
I always ask my bride first. So I want to make sure that this isn't a dynamic that I'm overstepping on. Like, are you okay with this? Are you comfortable with this? How is this going? And I always try and put myself first. And so, you know, if the bride's in the room and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm loving this dress. Like I love this dress. I will go out of the change room.
Oh, that's
first.
what you mean by putting yourself first.
Yes. I go out of the change room first and I'm like, she loves this dress. And I say it with conviction and I look right at them and I'm like, this is something that she's really enjoying. So hopefully her feelings are coming first.
And also don't now as she walks out be like,
oh yeah, I don't like that. Yeah. Right. So I try and protect that. Everybody compares it to Say Yes to the Dress, that TV show. I think they pay them to be nuts.
Probably. It's a TV show.
People are like, I'm on TV.
There's producers involved.
Yeah.
And or they create the I don't know, whatever. Like that doesn't actually happen to that degree. Every once in a while you'll have, like I've had some really terrible moments where I'm like, she's shaking, like you're zipping up the dress and like that emotion is like taking over and she's like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, oh, she's in the dress. And then she walks out of the room and the maid of honor is like, it looks like it's pineapples on it. Oh. And now she's looking at it and she's like, all I can see is pineapples.
Yeah.
Is this my favorite dress now? And I think as women, we are often seeking out approval. Which is so sad. Like we shouldn't. Just own it. Be yourself. Do you. But we're often seeking out approval. And so I always say that you're here for support and not opinions. I know you think you're here for opinions, but we don't want them. Like she doesn't actually need them. She needs your support because she's trying to choose the best dress. And so the worst comment you can make as a supporter of a bride when she's shopping is, it's not my favorite, but if you love it, great.
Oh, how many times have you heard people say that?
All
Probably
the time.
not
All the
realizing.
time. It's not my dress. And so if you love it, she wants the best dress. And the best dress means that it's everybody's favorite.
Yeah.
Which is never going to happen.
No.
well, and I think there's a little bit to be like, lie. Lie.
Yeah.
If you don't like it and they're walking out and they love it, you say, you look incredible.
Yeah.
Because in the end, it doesn't frickin' matter if you like it.
Exactly.
Like it really doesn't matter
No.
at all if you're into this dress or not. Because guess what? You're not wearing it.
Yeah.
And what matters is that she feels bomb. And if she feels great, amazing.
Well, and I always tell girls, it's choosing a wedding dress is such a funny thing because it is all about how you feel.
Yes.
And so it's a little bit of a head-heart game. And so we shop often with our heads. You know, they come in and they're like, this is my budget. And so we're putting head first in this moment, which is totally fair. Wedding dresses can be astronomically expensive. So yes, come in with a budget. But you start from this like analytical perspective where your head is totally in it. And it's those moments when the heart takes over that we as friends, supporters, and stylists need to let her heart take over. Because if you feel like $1 million, then you look like $1 million because that's what you're giving off. That's what you're radiating. And so when you walk down the aisle, I want people to look at the bride first, not the dress. As much as I want to be like, oh yeah, we were in that wedding. It's my dress. Yeah. No, it has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with the dress. It has to do with the bride. And if she feels confident, sexy, powerful, beautiful, whatever it is that she wants to feel, whatever it is that dress makes her feel, that's what we're going to see first.
Yeah.
And so you may not like the dress. It may not be your favorite dress on her even. But if she's feeling it, you better feel it with her.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that so
Yeah.
much.
I love that so much. And I think it's really how you feel about fashion.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, again, just because I've had so many shopping experiences with Aimee, and Aimee does really dress me for so many events. I think I've had that experience with you where you can identify that in someone and you're like, you came out and you're like feeling yourself. And so don't second guess
happens
that
all the
feeling.
time.
Don't second guess that feeling.
Yeah.
And I think we second guess our feelings sometimes. And we're like, am I really feeling the best? And you're like, no, you are. Like, it's all over your face.
Yeah. Or you're like, I feel great in this, but like it's a little outside the box.
And
Or
it's like, that's
are
totally
people
okay.
going to look at me weird? Or like,
Well, and now you're letting
Yeah,
that take over. You're
exactly.
letting your head take over and not how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Which I think is something I've experienced with you. And I think all three of us actually have really been styled by you before, that you are very like, you want people to feel their fashion almost in a way. Like you want people to feel that good. And it's like, it doesn't matter if it's a bright pink blazer or a neutral brown blazer. What it is how did you feel putting it on?
Yeah.
Because this might not resonate with you.
Yeah.
And that might not resonate with you. But it doesn't mean either one is better than the other.
Absolutely.
Although pink is superior.
Listen, I
Pink
also
and
have
puffy.
two pink blazers. I do have color, I swear.
We've been
Yes,
influenced.
We've seen it. We've been influenced. No.
And it's funny for me because I'm behind and I'm short. I'm 5'11". And so when I'm zipping a girl into a dress or like doing up the buttons, I can tell how they feel by their shoulders.
Ooh. Right, because you can't see their face.
I can't see their face. I'm not even looking at their face. I'm so focused on the buttons. I'm so focused on getting her in this dress. And it's like, as I'm doing up the buttons, she's like growing and growing and growing. And I'm like, oh, she's feeling it.
Yeah.
This is what we want, you know? And so it's like, you can like sense it in their body because there's like a vibration. There's, you know, this is, and that's what when I'm saying about women is we always like seek out validation. And it's like, who needs to validate your feelings? If you're feeling it, feel it. Yeah. Like, I don't, and it's just it's a very hard part of my job is to like watch like women's insecurities. I've never had an ugly bride, not once in my entire life. And so these women come in and they're like, I don't like my shoulders. I don't like this. And I'm like, stuff a sock in it, lady, and put a pretty dress on, you know? You just like, stop beating yourself up. You're beautiful. And you're marrying someone who thinks you're beautiful. You know, this is a moment to really just like own you.
Located in the heart of downtown Saskatoon, this gorgeous studio is the perfect backdrop for photography, the White Space Photo Studio. Picture this: white walls, floors, and furniture pieces with beautiful natural light flooding in. Sounds dreamy, right? Well, it is. Perfect for a wide range of photography sessions, including portraits, headshots, and product photography, the bright and clean backdrop is the perfect space to book in for any type of photos. We have booked the White Space for our podcast shoots and can tell you from experience how great it is. Just check out the photos on our feed. Owned and operated by Nicole Romanoff, a talented and experienced photographer who knows the importance of a great atmosphere and the little details that make all the difference. Think about a fully stocked espresso machine, a makeup station, a wardrobe rack, and a beautiful sitting area. These are a few of the touches added to the White Space to enhance your experience. Available for booking 7 days a week in multiple time slot options, you can find the White Space on Instagram at thewhitespaceYXE and book in at www.nicoleromanoff.com/whitespace, linked in the show notes.
But I also think you're really good at hearing those insecurities and going, okay, so this is an insecurity. So instead of necessarily standing there and, you know, not validating not that we need to validate people's insecurities, but you're not like, nope, you said you hate your shoulders, so I'm going to put you strictly in strapless to break this insecurity. You're like, okay, I have heard you. Yeah. I'm going to show you a bunch of options. And maybe one's going to be strapless and you're going to realize you look awesome in it, but I'm going to hear you. And I think that's really what I've taken from this conversation is like listening to the people, reading the people, especially when they're picking, I'm going to be bold and say probably the most important dress of their lives. Yeah. For most people would be, this is it. Right. Yeah. And so I think that's really unique. What you've cultivated in your space feels like very intentional and more than just being like, oh, you said you want a boho dress, so I'm going to throw you in every boho dress I have. It's like, okay, we're going to talk about
You're very intentional. Yeah. Right? Very intentional.
I try. And I think that's part of it is because sometimes our wording and what we say that we want or what we're asking for isn't worded correctly, if that makes sense. So I'll use boho as an example because it's a very popular trend in weddings right now. To be honest with you, like if you showed up and you were like, and this is what you were dressed like, and you were like, I want a boho dress, and you're like, liar.
No, but I think that's really important. I think that's very important. You'd be like, there is no way. You'd be like, who told you you wanted a boho wedding? Right? Or have you seen beautiful? No, I'm not saying she would say this to a bride. Maybe to me, she'd be like, Erica, sit down. But I'm like, what has influenced you to go into a direction of a wedding that clearly I'm curious about that with brides,
people don't
right?
fully understand terms. Like, I'm going to put myself in that shoes. Like, when you say some of these words, I'm like, yeah, I know what boho is. I know what this is, like, slightly, but I'm like, I'm not in that world, right? So I may have heard a term and I'm like, oh yeah, that looks pretty. Like, this is what I want, right? But you were kind of alluding to it earlier, being like, they don't use necessarily the right words for their actual vision.
Yeah.
Or they've seen someone's wedding.
Yeah.
And that bride loved boho and the photos. And it's like, I want that. And it's like, but you're not her.
Yeah.
That's actually not who you are.
Yeah.
Right. And not that it's your job to be like, hey, we need to redesign your entire wedding here, but it is your job to put them in the dress they're going to love.
Well, and I think that there's a really beautiful way to combine ideas too. So it's like, for me, I'm very tailored. Like, I like very classic cuts and looks.
Yeah.
Literally today.
when it comes to my clothing, but I also feel that I can dress in a way that is me and suits me, but also maybe has a little bit of a boho styling. And so I think that's where I like to kind of combine the things, because it's meant to be a timeless dress. It's meant to be an article of clothing that you're going to idolize. Or the word that I'm looking for, like, it's going to be on a photo on your wall forever. Like, this is something that you're going to look at forever. And are you choosing boho because it's easy, trendy, and very now? And I mean, obviously, whatever reason you're choosing the theme of your wedding or the style of your wedding is between you and your groom, if you're allowing him to take part in the decision.
If he gets any input.
But I also feel like there's a beautiful way to incorporate you and your idea of style and your look with your day.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I try and do, is combine those two things, because I have these girls that sit in front of me and they're like, this is very me. I had this beautiful girl in the other day, and she had showed me a couple of her favorite dresses from the other places that she had been. And we were talking about her wedding and all of these like ideas. And the dress that she left with was polar opposites from the ones that she had come in for. And it was because when I started talking to her, I'm like, these are very rigid. They look phenomenal on you. Like, shape wise, we know we're in the right direction here, but they were sparkly and they had all of these things. And she was like, we're going to use the mountains as our backdrop. I don't want an arch. I don't want all of this stuff. And then I put her in this really relaxed lace dress, and she's like, this is it.
Yeah.
And it was just like combining the things that she had come up with and sort of creating that like perfect. And so I think that's what I try and do, is I try and make sure that you're not getting wrapped up in Pinterest. You're not getting wrapped up in these looks. And like you had said, on someone who's not you. And I did it. I did it when I shopped for my first dress. I was like, this is what I want. And every store that I went to, every dress that they brought me, I was like, this is gorgeous. I'm so excited. And I'd put it on and be like, wah, wah. Like, why? Like, it's just, and it wasn't working. And finally my grandma was like, that's it. You look like a 12-year-old boy in a nightie.
Yeah. And you're like, that's when we need the opinion. And this is the lesson, folks. It can only come from grandma. Do you want to know, though? I wish now, I think what's interesting, two thoughts came to my head when you were talking. And number one, I feel like even compared, like I got married 8 years ago. It'll be 9 years in December, which is wild. I feel like the idea of having a wedding style wasn't a thing. It was like my color.
Yeah.
Like I had a color.
Literally.
I did not have like
wedding?
a feel of my, people are like, my wedding is like a garden party. And when people says garden party, you like, no.
Yeah.
But when I would have been like, my accent color is like white, gold, and black. Y'all would have been like, we could show up to anything.
Yeah.
And not know. So that's something I think that's very different. The other thing is, I wish I reflect and like, obviously I'm happy I'm married and that's all great. But I'm like, I feel like when I came in at the age of 23, like I did not know my style. And now I look back and I go, oh, I wish I could do it again simply because now I like know my style.
Yeah.
And I'd walk in and be like, I know exactly what I want to wear. Whereas when I was shopping, it was like, well, it looks pretty. Well, any wedding dress looks like it's a wedding dress.
Yeah, they're all pretty.
Unless it looks real bad. And it's just like, this is fit.
Well, and I'd love
But
to
it's
like
a
play
beautiful
off
dress.
of that, because I'm like, for me, I feel like I'm just starting to step into my own style, which we're all very aware of. Yes, no, thank you.
You look amazing.
Thank you. But I'm like, for someone who's starting to like branch out and trying to find their individuality and like, what does that actually mean for them? Because I'm going to put in a little plug here, like obviously you now offer styling services as well. But I would love to know, like, what are some of your tips for people who are looking to lean into their own individual style, figure out what works on them, what doesn't, like, what lights them up? You know, I'm like, how does someone even start to do that? Like, is there a few tangible, like ways you would recommend for someone to like take a look at their current closet? Like, I don't know, where's a good place to start?
So I actually had a girl reach out the other day and she was like, do you do the 16 colorway, color matches? Like, is this something that you do with the styling? So there's like this draping thing where you can sort of figure out what season you are for color. And so you sort of drape these fabrics. So you drape these fabrics kind of over you and you gauge your skin tone based on that. So like, which one looks better? Am I a spring? Am I a winter? Am I a summer? All of these sorts of things. And it's like, great. I mean, if we want to get super analytical about it, and we now know that I'm not an analytical person when it comes to fashion. And so I take like the Marie Kondo approach to it. Does it feel good? Do you feel confident?
Okay.
Do you feel like you can be you while wearing this? Because we've all had that moment where you're in something and you're like, oh my God, I'm so comfortable. Like I'm lifting, I'm tugging, I'm picking, I'm wrapping. Like I feel like my insecurities are showing in this outfit. And so when you put it on, does it feel good? And so I think that's where I like to start. And I mean, fashion is personality. I mean, we see it in Erica and we've seen her like growth where it's like her quirky, bold, bright, beautiful self comes out in her colors and her playful vibe and her clothes. And it's like you can look at her Instagram and her photos of herself in her fashion and kind of like almost have a little insight into who she is.
Yes, totally.
And I love that. Yeah. I love that. And so I feel like you should be you in your clothing. I think that's like
so
the biggest
beautiful
thing.
That's like actually a really great tip. Like how you feel physically in it is so important. And I think as you were saying that, I'm like, sometimes we don't think about how we feel or like, if you sit a lot or if you're trying to cover something, you're fiddling, like, right? We're like, oh, well, this is my color, quote unquote, that I'm supposed to wear. But does that article or piece actually like feel good to you?
Yeah.
Can you tell what season people are just by looking at them?
Yes.
What season am I?
So it's easier if I can if I have a couple of your photos and it's like if I'm looking at like colors that you have on, I'm like, right, Megan, don't do that color again. But again, I think that we as people are too analytical about this sort of stuff, and you start to get like too in depth, and it's like you put a color on and you feel good in it. So then if you felt, and I mean, girls too, it's like we change our hair color, we change all of these things. So it's like you might wear this color really well when you're tanned in the summer with blonde hair, and then if you go a little bit darker and you have a little less color, like now you're not wearing that color as well anymore. Put it on, look at yourself in the mirror. Like,
you'll know if it works.
Like if you're like, ooh, looking a little gray today, let's maybe not do this color. Like change it up. I feel like we have a little bit more freedom in the sense that we do change our color ourselves a little bit more. So again, it has more to do with how you feel in it. But yes, I can definitely look at people and I'm like, oh, you just pulled out your favorite outfit out of your closet and it was not a good one today. Like, you don't have enough flush in your cheek today for this one. Like, but again, just look at yourself in the mirror. And I'm the worst. I do not look at myself in a mirror ever. I actually just got a mirror in my hallway in my house on purpose.
So you dress without a mirror?
I do. Always have. I don't even look at the mirror. Like, when you go to the bathroom at a restaurant and like wash your hands, like I don't even check to see if I have stuff in my teeth. I don't look up. I do not look up. I don't know why.
She's all business, people.
I'm like, I don't know if we have time to dive into that one.
She's singing happy birthday while she's washing her hands, making sure.
Though, and not that I'm the stylist here, but I feel like I'm going to pull something from Aimee that Amy's taught me about your tips. But I think, and I've said this in the episode of me, I think it's really important to play.
Yeah.
And I think I'm like, you don't have to play by purchasing 10 different things. You can go to a store and just try it on. And I think as someone who loves fashion and loves to play, I won't lie. Like when I shop with people and they're like, they won't even put it on and they're like, oh, it's so cute. I absolutely love it. Like, I won't wear it. I'm like, put it on. Like you don't know what you don't like. If you will actually, maybe you'll put it on. And I've grabbed things before and I put it on and I'm like, big mistake, Erica. This is not for you. And I go put it back, but now I know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like that's great. We'll try something different. And I think playing is just so important to fashion and just being willing to try it even in a change room where no one can see you. And maybe you walk out and you're like, not for me. Or maybe you walk out and go, I had no idea that I looked good in that color because I've never put it on before.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think play, have fun with
box
it.
ourselves so quickly.
Yeah.
Right. We like walk up and we're like, not to pin you or I in a hole, but like I like neutral or I like black.
Or
this
I
is
like
all
pink.
I wear.
Or
Right?
I like pink.
Yeah. Yes.
Just
Right?
give me a blazer.
And so you're color looking, right? Rather than being like open to what's actually on the shelf.
Yeah.
And it was funny for me actually because I unboxed that Lambert backpack that I bought from you, that denim one. And the amount of DMs I had, because I held it up to my face, the amount of DMs I had that said, why don't you ever wear blue?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it
yeah.
made me be like, oh. So I've started to try on blue. And I have not found yet an item in blue that is
love.
the same because that was like denim-y. And I'm like, I
We
need
need
to find.
a Canadian tuxedo for
I
you.
need a Canadian tuxedo.
what we need.
I absolutely do. You know I would.
Yeah.
But so that, but these things that I'm like, even I, as someone who loves fashion, needs to be reminded to play and to try it.
And bringing this back to how you feel in clothing, I'm also an advocate for dress how you want to feel.
Yes.
Too, not like, because like there are days where, and I think we all went through this during the pandemic where we were in sweatpants at home, and it's like you start to just kind of feel bored with clothing and bored. Like, I cannot look at another tie-dye sweatsuit. Like, it is not like, get it out of here. And so there are days where I'm like not feeling it, and I'm like, put on the power suit and underwear.
Okay.
Underwear. Wear fancy underwear. And wear it every day.
I wear underwear that could almost be a bra. It comes up so high.
Me too. I love high underwear.
See, but I
could
want
probably buy
comfy
nicer.
underwear.
Okay, which is great.
I'm really like, I need them to be comfy. I feel like the opposite where I'm like, I don't want to think, difference, right?
Could we say quality underwear
Ooh.
instead of fancy underwear, maybe? And you're like, no, it's got to be fancy.
Like, I'm sure it's like to each their own, but if I'm wearing something super sexy underneath, I'm like, I've got a secret.
So not anymore because you just told it on our podcast. What color are they today?
But I feel really good. I also match my underwear to my outfits.
That's not surprising to me.
Yeah.
Oh
my gosh.
I love that.
That's why you're a stylist.
Well, and I
Head
have
to toe, baby.
like matching sets, like are a
Yeah.
huge thing for me. Like, and my grandma used to say, wear clean pajamas to bed in case the house burns down and
Yes.
a firefighter has to get you.
Yeah.
And so now I'm always like, if they have to cut my clothes off in a car accident, I'm going to look real
Looking
good.
good. Totally. It's like wear clean underwear in case you get in a car accident.
Oh my gosh.
Also wear clean underwear because like it's healthy. But
Yes, you
Also
should.
wear clean
Yes.
underwear.
Just
no,
always.
I get that though. I understand. Like find from that, I would take away, find something that's going to make you feel good.
Yeah.
And whether that's your bag that day,
Yep.
whether it's your
Jewelry.
new hat or jewelry, like find that thing that's going to make you just feel really good. And obviously we're not here promoting we're not promoting like it's the outside that counts. I think what we're promoting is that's that inner bit that comes out
Yes.
when you are loving what you're wearing.
when you feel good, then that's what comes out of you, right? Like, I think, when we talk about like insecurities, and you guys in your podcast that we just listened to about like anxieties and stuff like that, I feel like you can take away a little bit of those layers, a little bit of those insecurities, a little bit of that anxiety if you are feeling really good. And a part of that is dressing like that. Like if you didn't wash your hair and wore the same sweatpants for 5 days, like you don't feel good anymore. As soon as you like, shower it all off and like get yourself ready. And if that's just a little bit of lip gloss and a clean pair of jeans, that's what you need to do to feel good that day. And I think fashion has taken like this really wild turn where, if you look back into eras, it was like everybody was wearing the exact same thing. And so fashion was like that. And now it's like there's so many different avenues and there's so many different looks and places that you can go. And so it is more about you than it is about the outside world. And I think there's a little less judgment when it comes to what you wear, which is a beautiful thing that we've kind of come into. And it's like you can be your own being and feel really good in what you're wearing, and that confidence, and that's what you portray.
Yeah. But I think what you just hit on is so important about what you need to wear to feel good, and that it's going to look different for all of us. I was just telling CJ that we were sitting at my house working, and I said, I never really got into loungewear because I couldn't get past the fact that it felt like pajamas.
Yeah.
And I'm not I see some girls wearing loungewear with blazers and I'm like, frick, like that's just, but for me, I can't do it. And there's something in me that goes, it doesn't work for me. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Love it on other people, but recognizing what works for you, right? So we're going to wrap up here. And I'm just wondering if you can, we like to ask our guests kind of like a fun question at the end, which is, and maybe you want to make it fashion related or not, but the best piece of advice you've ever been given.
So it comes from a really weird source.
Okay.
I love it.
When I was in grade 9, I dated this guy. Didn't get too much out of the relationship other than this. But he said to me, never regret anything you've ever done. And he was in grade 12. So, I mean, not like of worldly knowledge.
But he was wise to end grade 9.
And what I took from that sentence was anything that you've ever done made you who you are. And so if you have any regret, then you're sort of throwing shade or hate or judgment on who you are today.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lesson, and it takes daily work to love you. But the first thing that I needed to let go of was regret.
That's really good.
I love that.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's really beautiful.
We want you to share with our followers where they can follow you, how they can get connected with you.
Okay.
So like shout out maybe your handles or whatever you feel like.
Businesses.
I have quite a few.
Yeah, buckle up.
So Instagram is probably like the best. It comes directly to me. So I have at Unveiled Dress Co. for the bridal boutique. I have at Shop the Dress Co. for the clothing store. And then my personal page, which is at Aimee.thestylist.
Can you spell Aimee for us?
Oh, yes. It's
Because
fun.
you have a beautiful spelling and we want people to find you.
For sure. It's AIMEE.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for coming, Aimee.
Yes, we
you.
appreciate it. Thank you everyone for joining us on this episode of the Her Podcast. If you want to follow along with us, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at its.her.podcast. We can't wait to see you there.
Bye.
Bye. Adios.